Cuphead is a hard game, and if any of you have been fortunate enough to play it, then I bet you'd agree with me. The game has no healing mechanics at all, meaning that every mistake will be held against you. Although this game is known for its difficulty, some of the bosses just aren't as hard as others, which is why today I will be ranking them all from easiest to hardest. Out of all the bosses in the game, the easiest one really wasn't a question for me. Guppy Legrande really only has a few attacks. He kind of just hops around and occasionally wants to lunge his body at you. And once you get him to enough health, he takes this mysterious white pill and grows like 3 times as big. And now, I mean, he's not that bad now. I mean, he's not significantly harder, but I mean, it is more of a challenge. He's bigger, he takes up more land, and he punches you. He straight up punches you instead of lunging his body at you like a fucking balloon originally. But oh boy, it gets worse. As soon as you think he's about to die, he turns into a literal living tombstone. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. The next boss on our list is the root pack, which is consisted of 3 different vegetables, a carrot, an onion, and a potato. Wait, are potatoes vegetables? The first stage is the potato, which spits dirt balls and worms at you at a consistent rate, but over time, each time it gets faster, pretty much. It's not a very hard stage at all. The second stage is the onion, which, as onions do, they cry, or I guess they make you cry, but it makes sense in this context. Above you, there will be raining tears. Some of them are going to be pink, but I don't know how anybody is parrying those fucking things. And the final stage is the carrot, who apparently knows some secret psychic abilities to shoot laser rings out of their third eye. Oh god. As long as you dodge the carrot missiles and the laser beams coming from his fucking psychic ass, then you should be good. The fight should not be too bad. Ribby and Croaks, the boxing frog brothers. I do think it's kind of weird how there are flies in their establishment. Like, wouldn't Ribby and Croak wanna eat these flies? And I don't know how this world works.
You looking mad yummy, boy.
No, please.
Yeah.
Anyways, this is a pretty fun fight. The first stage consists of the tall frog spitting a bunch of literal mosquitoes that are on fire, and the short one shooting literal Hadoukens at you, which is not very hard to dodge, honestly. You just kind of jump over the first one, stay crouched, and then jump over the next one that's closest to the ground. In the second stage, the shorter frog freaking rolls across the screen, essentially pinning you between the 2 frogs. The shorter frog freaking claps and creates these supersonic spheres that just kind of bounce off the invisible ceiling and the floor. And then the tall frog turns into a literal fan to blow you toward the other frog. In the third stage, the frogs literally combine to become a slot machine? What is going on here, okay? I was sus in the beginning with there being flies in the restaurant, but now they're a literal slot machine. Something strange is going on here. As well as having one of my favorite soundtracks, Hildeberg is a pretty fun fight. It's kind of hard considering it is the first airplane level, and I mean, at this time, you're not too familiar with how the airplane works and what its mechanics are, but I think it does a great job of teaching you like how to use certain things. Like the tornado attack is very good for teaching you how to turn tiny and be quicker and avoid big obstacles like that. In her final phase, she turns into like this lunar crescent moon, and she starts shooting these like stars and parryable stars and these UFOs that, like, the yellow ones, they'll shoot below you like as soon as you're about to pass under them, and then the red UFOs, they'll shoot right after you pass under them. When fighting Sally stage play, if you don't have the smoke charm equipped, it's gonna be a lot more difficult. I ranked it this low because if you do have the smoke charm equipped, it is honestly one of the easiest bosses in the game. You just have to time your dashes through all of her attacks, and through her jumping, and through her kissing, and through her babies throwing bottles at you, and her turning into a portrait of a god. It's an interesting fight based on the art and stuff, but it's not too hard if you have the smoke charm equipped. I've always loved the Cagney Carnation fight. It's just a very fun time. A lot of flying projectiles. You're gonna have to use platforms in her second phase when she goes literal flower Super Saiyan on your bitch ass. It's not the hardest phase, but it's definitely the first boss in Inkwell Isle 1 that kind of definitely puts a bit more at stake. It doesn't help that in her second phase she covers either one or two of the 3 platforms that you're able to stand on, and if you fall off, you're guaranteed to take damage. But yeah, Cagney's not that bad. Baroness von Bonbon is one of my least favorite bosses in this entire game. And here's why. This fight always just seems to take so long. There's 3 stages of you fighting 3 of 6 of her minions, I think there's 6 of them. There is the gumball machine, there's a waffle, a candy corn, a gumball, or a jawbreaker, and then there's a muffin, so I think 5. But they all suck. And then our final stage, she literally just takes control of her freaking castle, and then the castle starts chasing you. When that happens, you've already been in the fight for about 3-4 minutes already, so it's like, come on, please, just end me, end me. Werner Vermin, the German rat Nazi war guy. He's pretty fun. His first stage, he's in his little soup can tank thing, and he's shooting these projectiles that some of them you can parry. And occasionally he'll shoot these pink things that you parry to jump over him, because he will slide across the freaking place. He shoots these cherry bombs that explode on the floor and like go in 2 different directions. You're gonna need to jump to where it's going to land to be able to dodge that. In his second phase, his stupid little freaking can tank explodes because he's a dumbass, and he's just essentially just starts shooting flamethrowers everywhere on 2 different platforms. It's not very hard. All you gotta do is make sure you're not on the same level as him, and watch for the spinning caps. And in his third stage, this is not a horror game, okay? Why did they have to do me like that? Okay, I'm not trying to see the freaking bottom of this freaking cat's throat, okay? In the third stage, the cat throws his arm across the room, and that causes a bunch of like wood planks to fall from the sky, and he also starts spitting a whole bunch of freaking dead rats, like ghost rats. What the fuck? For this stage, you gotta watch out for those pink balls that the ghosts shoot out, because they do have the same kind of like split effect that the cherries do in the beginning. Yay! Another boss that I freaking hate! Wally Warbles is a piece of shit, okay? In the first stage, he shoots these freaking eggs that aren't that hard to dodge. All you gotta do is kind of hug the back, like the back wall away from him. He'll also turn into some fingers and shoot like 3-way bullets from his head fingers. I'm not making this up, okay? In the next phase, he starts having a literal seizure and starts throwing his freaking feathers everywhere. This attack is not very hard. It's kind of like an easier version of an attack that's coming later from a much harder boss. But it's not very hard. All you gotta do is just kind of hug the wall and then just kind of keep going up and down as I do, because it's that's like my best way to defeat this stage. In the third stage, his little nerdy ass son comes out, and he has like these eggs with spikes that kind of orbit around him. He also has this laser blaster, shoots parryable bullets. He's not very hard. He just kind of flies around the screen. You just gotta make sure you're not very close to him, and make sure you're not like within like the inside of his like shell orbits or his egg orbits, and that's all you gotta really do. And in the last stage, we can see how beat up he is after we freaking completely demolished his bitch ass. He's being held by these 2 little Twitter birds that are like some hospital medic birds that apparently want to eat him. Literally as soon as you defeat him and like it says knockout, you can see them putting freaking salt and pepper on him. They're finna eat him. There's some cannibal ass birds, okay? Peppy the Clown. I fucking love the soundtrack on this freaking boss, dude. You know what I'm saying? This whole fight is just so fun. In the first stage, he's careening across this freaking cart track in his little go-kart, trying to hit you with these cutout ducks flying across the top to make it a little bit more difficult. In the second stage, he inflates his head and essentially becomes a whole balloon animal while a train drives across the cart, and there's a bunch of balloon dogs that are trying to eat you. This stage isn't too hard. All you gotta do is just shoot his poppable head and you should be good. His third stage is honestly really cheesable. As soon as there's no like roller coaster on the track, get under his little donkey and there's no way he can even damage you. In his last stage, he turns into a giant freaking carousel, and the train or the roller coaster, it's like 4 times as fast. So you don't want to stand on the track. Once he turns into a carousel, there's a lot of platforms you can stand on. And as soon as the train passes, he spits out these little penguin guys that shoot baseballs at you. They're not very hard. I wouldn't recommend trying to kill them. I would recommend trying to avoid their baseballs until the train comes back and kills them. Rumor Honeybottoms is an annoying ass boss. Okay, and I think the main reason why is that the stage is constantly going up and you constantly have to make sure you are not gonna drown in the freaking honey pool that's below you. The first stage is nothing special. It's a police bee that throws these bombs that explode into multiple different ways, and some of them are parryable. And then you also gotta watch out for like the pedestrian bees or like the worker bees trying to get to work. You know, you don't wanna interrupt them. You know, they got mouths to feed, they got honey to put on the table. In the next stage, Rumor finally shows herself, and she has this like honey wand that she's able to do 2 attacks with. She can do a purple triangle that shoots these parryable little specks out of each corner of the triangle, and then she has this parryable ball that follows you. During this stage, she also has a move where she turns into like this wrecking ball, and that shoots like little like they look like the bullet things from Mario Kart, but they're not very hard to dodge. They go in like a zigzag kind of pattern. You just gotta make sure you're not about to get hit by them, and you should be fine. In the final stage, she reads through this like magic book, and then she does some weird acid trip eyes, and then she turns into a freaking plane. I don't know what this game's deal is with turning like insect, bugs, small creatures into literal inanimate objects. I mean, first there was the fan frog. I don't know. This stage isn't that hard though. She shoots these little fists that track you, and then occasionally she'll swipe across the screen with this big ass saw blade, but you can see it coming. She has a pretty decent like wind up to it, so you should be fine in this stage.
Give me your loot, scallywag.
In the first stage of this boss, the captain shoots little pellets out of this little squid thing, and then the barrel from above just keeps looking down for its next victim on who to frickin' kill. In this stage, the boss can summon one of 3 different sea animals to help him. First, we got the octopus squid thing, who shoots ink everywhere, and if it hits you, it won't damage you, but it'll blind you. It'll make it harder for you to see other projectiles. The next one is a freaking shark that leaps across the deck trying to bite your ass. If you stand like right next to the boat, you should be fine. And then there's these bullfish looking things that my dumbass forgot to get freaking footage of. I'm sorry, okay? And then his freaking boat decides, you know what? Hey, I want free will. And freaking just goes insane, and apparently he has a sentient tongue that shoots fire. I don't know, this is a weird ass boss. If he's like clenching his jaw, he's about to shoot this massive beam. You can either duck under it or you can parry it from above, but you're gonna have to bounce. I'd recommend just ducking. And then that freaking little barrel is still chilling. It's freaking he's annoying in this freaking stage, but not too bad. And yeah, that's this boss. I always loved the vibe of the Phantom Express boss. Just being next to a train going that fast, fighting these huge ghostly apparitions, has just always been so freaking dope to me. I don't know why. In the first stage, the ghost shoots like these eyeballs out of its palms. They're not really hard to like deal with. All you gotta do is jump and shoot in his general direction, and all of the bullets that miss the eyes will inevitably just damage him, so that's probably the best thing to do. In the second stage, this big ass skeleton like comes out of the roofs of some of the carts and starts slamming its hands down on certain like parts of the track. What you gotta do is you gotta parry the sides of your like little wagon to get away from where his hands are gonna slam. The third stage is pretty interesting. These like ghoul looking skinny necked things come out of some of the roofs, and you gotta watch out for these ghosts that when you kill they drop a parryable skull that will damage you if you don't parry it, or unless it hits the ground. But occasionally one of these heads will start puking fucking lightning and chase you to the other side. You gotta make sure you get your cart all the way to the other side. The fourth stage is my favorite because it takes like the head of the train, or like the front of the train, and like puts it on its 4 legs. Yeah, legs. This is I don't know what's going on here, but it's like riding like a horse, and you gotta parry its like little light bulb tail to open up the like area where its like heart is, and that's the only time you can take damage. Whenever it's open, some fireballs will come out, and he'll occasionally spit out this bone ring that as soon as it hits the ground it'll go toward you, so you gotta make sure you jump over it. But other than that, this boss isn't that bad. It is kind of difficult though. If you would have asked me as soon as Cuphead came out what I thought the hardest boss is, I would definitely have to go with the genie. I forgot his name. I think it's like Jimmy the Great or something like that. The main things I had problem with this boss was mainly the first stage and like trying not to take any damage in that first stage, and then like getting through the next ones with having enough health to actually win in the last phase. The second phase is actually really cool. I really like what they did with that. It's a very unique idea, having him as like the pillars and you gotta break them. I think that was really cool. I also thought the fourth stage was really cool, how he copied you and essentially like made a puppet out of you which you fight. I thought that was really interesting. And then the last stage, I mean, because of his size, I mean, it's very intimidating, but it actually isn't very hard. You kind of just gotta watch out for where the triangles are gonna like shoot their beams, and try to stay like diagonally to their position, but that's all you gotta really do for this stage. King Dice is such an interesting fight, and it's such an interesting concept with the whole dice rolling thing. A lot of people, when doing rankings, they rank the mini bosses in King Dice's fight separately, but I'm gonna do something different. I'm just gonna rank them all within the one spot, within King Dice's spot. So the ranking goes Piruletta, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but that's the first one. Chips Bedigan, Mr. Wheezy, Tipsy Troop, Pip and Dot, Mangosteen, Fear Lap, Hocus Pocus, and finally Mr. Chimes. This one's actually pretty interesting because you're essentially playing like a game of memory, and every time you get 2 of them correct, that's the only time that you can actually damage him, which I thought was actually pretty cool. The King Dice fight itself isn't too like unique or interesting. Essentially, he puts one of his arms down, and then like a wall or like a line of like these cards walk across your like platform, and you gotta jump to where the parryable ones are and like just bounce off the parryable ones. It's not that hard. It does drag on a little too long, I feel like, but other than that, this boss isn't too bad, especially this last stage. At last, the boss that everybody thought was gonna be the #1 spot, Grim Matchstick. The reason that this wasn't the hardest boss for me is that second stage is kind of easily cheesable if you use Lobber, and I honestly think Lobber is one of the most underrated shots in the game. But that stage is just a breeze. The final stage is what really gets to people, I feel like, especially with the whole splitting fire. But honestly, I think this boss is a little less hard than people make him out to be. Now we're on to the top 3, and in the third spot we have the Devil, the final boss of the game. It's funny that the final boss isn't the hardest boss in the game, but He's still pretty difficult. His first stage, he's sitting on his throne. He has a whole bunch of attacks that I probably can't list all of them right now, but just trust me, they're pretty freaking difficult. Okay, my least favorite one is the goat. This attack is hard because it's really hard to get the timing right on when like his hoof hands are gonna hit you. You gotta like jump kind of off to the side and then dash toward like the middle of the screen. It's kind of weird, and over time you'll get the timing down, but especially when you're first starting, it's pretty freaking hard. In the next stage, he freaking takes off his skin and becomes a freaking skeleton, and he jumps down this hole where you go into like literal hell. Like, you were already in hell, but now you're in hell. In this stage, you have 5 platforms, and occasionally this like poker chip will fall on one of them. You just gotta make sure you're not standing on the platform where the poker chip is gonna fall. He's also gonna spawn this axe out of his eyeball. Yeah, it's kind of weird. And then he also has this attack where this floating parryable bomb comes out of his ear. If you do not parry it, the explosion will fucking cover like 1/3 of the entire screen. In his next phase, you can start to tell that he's getting a little more frustrated because this stupid little cup is starting to best him. He spawns these little they're not little, these fat ass like demons that spit skulls. And then these freaking like little like fly things come out of his forehead, and occasionally they'll swoop down. And then there's still the poker chips that fall, but there's only 3 platforms, which makes it a little bit harder to dodge. In his final stage, he finally comes to terms with the fact that he's losing against this little fucking cup, and he just starts crying like a fucking little baby. For this stage, all you gotta do is, because you're gonna be on one platform, all you gotta do is watch for the poker chip. You gotta jump around it, and then there's also gonna be these tears coming from his eyeballs, obviously, that will damage you, so just be careful about that. But this stage is really short, so all you gotta do is kind of survive for a little bit. This is not how I wanted to remember the Iron Giant, okay? Dr. Call's robot, this fucking boss sucks ass. In the first stage, you have to destroy 3 of his like attacks, I guess, different parts of his body. First is the beam on top of his head, which is pretty freaking large. You gotta be careful about that. 2, you want to shoot the little hole in his chest, because that shoots out these parryable like laser things. And then on the bottom, you want to shoot his little like the other hole. A bunch of like little drones will start coming out of that, and you just want to be able to not deal with those drones. They're not very hard to destroy, but the order in which I typically destroy them is first the laser on top, then the bottom, and then the middle. His next stage is really easy. His head comes off and it kind of just flies around the stage for a bit. All you gotta do is occasionally shoot the head whenever you get the chance, and then avoid the giant ass like missile bombs that have like really big AoE. Like, they fucking destroy a big chunk of the screen, so you just gotta make sure you're not anywhere near them when they explode. But yeah, this stage is a breeze, honestly. And in his final stage, you can see the fucking mad scientist on the top, Dr. Call, and he starts shooting these like crystals that come out of this crystal that he's holding, and you gotta avoid these like electrified walls that come on. But other than that, all you gotta do is really do the same thing you did for the Wally Warbles fight, trying to just like go up and down, you know, try to hug the back of the left side of the screen, and you should be okay. This stage does drag on a little bit, which makes it uncomfortable, but it is hard. I mean, this is the second hardest boss in the game, but I believe in you. You can do it. Don't give up. And the #1 spot of the hardest boss in Cuphead goes to that stupid mermaid, Calamaria. Everything about this boss is a freaking clusterfuck, okay? In the first stage, there is just so much you gotta look out for, okay? When it comes to the floating ghost pirates, the freaking the pufferfish that can freaking float, and all her little minions that she spawns. It's just so annoying. The second stage is one of the most difficult experiences I've ever had in gaming, and I am not kidding, okay? She shoots this X-ray vision shit that freezes you, turns you into stone, and you gotta like spam your keys to be able to break out of it. And while she's doing that, there's all these electric eels spitting all these freaking like little turds at you. And when you're stuck, when you're stoned, you can't move. You can't. Not at all. Okay, you're stuck until you break out, and if you get hit by one of those poop pellets, then her last stage sucks too, okay? You're in this like coral cave, and she still has the X-ray power, but like you're moving, and there's like little like blocks with spikes on them that you gotta avoid, and you gotta like be way to the left if you don't want to get hit by any for freaking countless projectiles or the spiky wall bullshit. I'm just so glad that we're done talking about this stupid mermaid. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. It took a long while to make, and I had a great time making it. I think I'm gonna do, or I want to do some more videos like this with some other games. But yeah, that being said, I'm so glad that you guys chose to click on this video and watch it. It means so much to me. And if you did enjoy, please go down there and like the video and subscribe. It gives me more motivation to do videos like this, and I know I need to keep doing my Nutty Consumers Let's Play. Don't worry, it's coming. Part 4 is coming. I'm sorry, I just haven't had much interest to play that game right now, but I promise it's coming, and I really appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful day. Later.